So, and like you said about being conscious, like we're constantly like, working in our heads, that we shut, and it's really important what you said there about shutting the feelings down, because it's so true, isn't it? We're just here all the time. We're just in our heads, and that's what's making us sick, isn't it?
Welcome to the Enchanted Earth Podcast, where you will hear stories of nature with the power to transform our lives. These sacred stories are begging to be shared now. So listen in as my guest today shares one of their own. So welcome, everybody. Today we have with us Vanessa Champion, and let me tell you a little bit about Ness. Originally an academic at UCL, Ness has a PhD in Greek and Latin, who also worked in the British Museum, honing her interest in research in how societies flourish and how the visual environment informs our behaviors. After editing a London newspaper and setting up her own media company, she founded the Journal of Biophilic Design to share interviews with thought leaders on how biophilia supports well-being for people, planet, and place. A serial traveler and professional photographer, Ness creates virtual nature walls for healthcare, schools, offices, and homes. Ness is also the founder of PhotoAid Global Foundation. So welcome, Ness.
Lovely, Maureen. Thanks so much for having me on this. I'm so excited. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on here because there are a few people in my life that I would call Renaissance women. You are exactly that. Your hands are in so many wonderful topics, but please share what biophilia is for our audience who may not have heard what that is.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. And yeah, I do have fingers in lots of pies. It keeps me going. It's a bit like nature, really. And I suppose it's a bit like what biophilia is. So it basically refers to, so bio meaning life and philia meaning love. It's basically a Greek, comes from the Greek origins. And it refers to our innate tendency, our innate connection to nature and natural patterns and natural systems. So bio meaning life and philia meaning love and tendency towards, and it refers to basically our innate connection to nature. It comes from a Greek word. Yeah, and basically biophilic design then is like kind of that sort of principle, the design principle basically, where we apply natural systems, natural patterns into the built environment, everything from biomimicry to, colors, woods, natural airflow. It's more than just putting a plant in the corner, but it's really fantastic for the well-being of people and also for planet. And I think that's it. It's sort of this whole biophilia, the concept of biophilia is basically encourages us to rethink how we are, how we live our lives, what we surround ourselves with. And it's not just about, as I say, not just about plants, but it's also about each other. It's about community. It's about life. It's about living systems, and animals too. And yeah, and then, and if we surround ourselves more with these things, we tend to act more empathetically to each other, to wildlife around us, to nature, and actually also to ourselves. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And the more I found out about it, the more it's like a no-brainer. And yeah, and that's why I'm doing it now. I'm really actively campaigning for more biophilic design to be implemented in the built environment, into hospitals and schools, and yeah, and into cities to help mitigate climate change as well as everything else. So yeah, it's quite a lot involved. It's kind of a nutshell, really. I haven't explained that properly.
No, that's beautiful. And it just kind of reminds me of my kind of passion when I discovered Feng Shui,
Yeah.
and how when I was practicing Feng Shui for a few years and then I uncovered this topic of biophilic design, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of Feng Shui in disguise as a more rational, logical, evidence-based approach to some of the more foundational concepts of the Feng Shui kind of philosophy of living. And I think the underpinning of the two is, one, our impacts, our environments have a huge impact on us, on our well-being, as you said, and our behavior, and our thoughts, in our actions, in our enjoyment of life. And two, that nature is absolutely necessary to be connected with in our lives for greater well-being and joy and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. And I mean, I obviously you're an expert in feng shui, but I came across that when I was, I don't know, 15, something like that. And I was really into kind of, the Tao of life and, the wheel of life and chi, and I was doing Tai Chi. And then it was just like a sort of a natural thing. This whole, when I found out a little bit more about feng shui and I started implementing it in my bedroom and then where I could, but it made sense really,
Yeah.
colorways and all these things and the resonance. And the more I found out about it, I mean, obviously, you are an expert in it, and I do love our conversations that we've had. But and I would love your brain. I would love to kind of absorb your brain and sort of like be able to apply it because, yeah, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Really, not having like pointy corners at us and that because it's like it's not a nice feeling, even just something like that. But colorways, more natural patterns, more natural systems, hearing
Yeah.
water, smells, scents, all these kind of things and the activations that you include in feng shui. If we're thinking about it, that's also biophilia. It's about these natural systems, these natural patterns, the
Yes.
natural energies in the earth, really.
Yeah, it is the chi, the flow of the energy in our environments that we cannot see. It is the yin and yang and balance of those two opposing concepts. And all of this, and of course, the five natural elements, which I love, all of these concepts are from nature. I mean, that is where they were observed.
Mhm.
And that is what makes our environments so much more supportive and nurturing. Um, yeah, it is. I think there's a word that came to me as you were talking. It's about consciously creating our environments rather than unconsciously, which
Yeah.
unfortunately most of us live unconsciously the majority of our lives. But when you put intention and awareness to your space, you can create such a beautiful, supportive space.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's what I love about, the concepts of biophilic design, because like you say, it's all evidence-based. So, it helps people kind of go, oh, it must be okay then. But I think for me, it's like it's ticking all the boxes. And I think when I heard about biophilia, it was like, well, this is how we should be. And it all, like you said yourself, the whole elements of feng shui. And you said, the actual elements, the elements of the elements, fire, water, air. It's actually what we, trying to advocate in biophilic design. It's like natural airflow. It's
Mhm.
creating different temperatures. It's different humidities. It's having wood. It's having all these different elements that
Mhm.
remind us of the natural world, these natural patterns. It's biomimicry ultimately. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, you actually were so gracious to take some time to share some stories with me that are published in the book, The Enchanted Earth.
Oh, it's a beautiful book.
And but first I would like, thank you. First I would like to ask, can you tell us, so you talk about this like age of 15. Was there and I'm always curious with participants in this podcast of kind of what your childhood was like in relationship to nature.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, and it's this you inviting me on here has made me think about different aspects of my life and different moments and things. When I was younger, we used to, my mum was really into ecology and nature preservation and hedgerows
Mm.
here in the UK, and she would advocate for them, and she was quite proactive. I sort of come from a long line of women who have, sort of change makers and standing up for things. So and my father was very much like he loved nature. He loved, he would love dig holes. I mean, he had a professional job, but he would be in the garden, he'd be digging, and there'd be a robin that would sit on his shoulder. And it was like, it's sort of classic, always outside around digging a hole. It's how I remember my dad. He was a shovel in his hand, he always and then the other side, my mum would be sitting under she'd design the gardens. My dad would do the design, actually do that. So, and that was like a really happy time for my mum and dad to be together. There was other sort of struggles and issues that went on, which obviously affected me and how I was. I mean, I was very shy as a child as a result of other things that happened. And I suppose, you mentioned sort of 15 and things. It was when I started to really sort of think about who I wanted to be. I sort of became a goth, but I didn't like the goth music. I just liked the fact that I could just both shut myself off in this sort of black. I mean, I'm wearing black today randomly, which is not, this is not the thing. And I suppose I got too much eyeliner on as per. But yeah, it was the nature connection. I was started doing photography, and I went to Cornwall. So we used to holiday in Cornwall in the beach, and I was just totally my happy place. And I'd be there with the dog, and my mum would sit there and she'd be writing because she was a writer. She used to write children's books and murders and sci-fi. And so I'd be sitting on the seat with on the cushions or whatever on the edge of the this three it was actually a 3 mile beach. It was in Hale in Cornwall, and it was absolutely stunning. And so I'd just literally go off with my camera. But I started taking photographs, and it was the quietness and the peace and just me just being at one with myself. I mean, I was bullied at school and all this kind of thing, and I think it was like where I could be, I could just be. And nature doesn't answer back, and it doesn't abuse you, and it doesn't, and if the wind blows, you're there. You can choose to stand in the wind, or you can choose to, take shelter. Whereas if you've got people around you, or you're in an environment where you can't step away from the wind, then I think that's where stress and all this kind of thing happens. And so for me, being on the beach and choosing to stand in the wind, and and having the feeling that power of the sea and nature, and just sort of almost like blowing everything away from me, was just amazing. And just being with the dog as well, and just me, and she was like my sister because I'm an only child as well. So I think that solitary nature of me, and self-sufficiency has all come about because of being an only child, and obviously having all the things that's happened. It just makes you stronger. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think that's so true. I mean, I've come out completely come out the other side of it, but when I came back from Cornwall, and I'd taken, and because I'm an artist as well, so I used to sketch and draw, and I was always doing that and sculpting. So I'm very creative person, with making things. And I when I came back and I started selling my images, I think that gave me value as well, or it realized that people would value something that I did, do you know? And these images of nature, and I thought that they gave people joy, which obviously they did because I wanted to buy them. But that sort of took me down a different path, and I was always wanted to be an academic, so the academia side of things, and like the ancient world, I suppose, was something I could really get my teeth into. I loved the languages. I love language. I loved how and it's kind of sort of abstract really, but for me, nature is like a language. And I think maybe that's what appeals to me. It's because it's so complicated, that everything is kind of interconnected, and you need one thing to have everything else. Like the mycelium keeps the trees alive, and you need the trees to keep the planet alive. And with language, you need, the origin of the root of a verb or whatever it is, and then the forms, the things at the end of the words sort of indicate whether it's you or me or what we're going to do, or past tense or future tense. So I mean, this is really abstract, but it sort of it sort of makes sense in my head. Honest God. But yeah, so that was really where it happened. And then I went away. We had loads of people die when I was 17. It was like 13 people died in 1 year, and it was really a shit. Excuse my French, sorry. But it was like I was also rebelling at school the year before. So the year I thought I was going to bring myself back, and my mum's sister died, and it was like, this is a bit of a disaster year. So I basically put myself into nature, and yeah, I sort of just take myself off into the countryside and things like that, and just be at one with music. So it was music, art, and language, and I suppose these sort of organic forms, if you want. I think that's what language is, organic. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, actually. Language is organic, nature's organic, music is organic, and our reaction to that is always different depending where we are. Yeah. I don't think that's really answered your question. I've kind of got off on a bit of a tangent, Maureen.
Oh no, but that's the beauty of our lives, right?
Mm,
Everything is intermingled,
mm,
and one little thread leads to another, and it just
mm,
creates this beautiful fabric that
yeah.
we're part of. So
Mm,
that's really fascinating, and I always think of nature as this organic language that we probably knew back when we were more connected to the natural world. And now we're just reawakening to the language of nature. So I really
mm,
love that connection there with, learning a language, because I think we're all learning her language, Gaia's language.
yes, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, actually, and and it does speak. Nature speaks. There's a language every day, she's trying to say something every day. You open the door and you can just what you hear and how you hear it changes too, depending if it's cloudy or there's bright sunshine or it's about to snow or it's about to rain and things become more intense or your words get blown away and you can hear bird song or you can't hear bird song. You can hear the leaves rustle or you can't hear leaves rustle or do you know as well as the seasons change and the crunch underfoot or um, yeah, there's so many, like you say, it's sound, as well as, I mean, because I'm interested in hieroglyphics and linear B, and I mean, I'm a right nerd. I'm very much a nerd.
I
But
am too, so welcome to the
also,
club.
excellent. Yeah, so the sort of visual representation, so pictograms, the images of words that the ancient, the Egyptians did, and then ancient Greeks did, that became sound, but they originally meant something. And I think as well with nature, nature
Hmm.
produces things that we should be listening to. And if we have eyes to see, and well, not exactly ears to, well, ears to hear, and but eyes to see, and touch and smell and senses and all these things that we should shut, if we shut down a particular sense and then focus on another. But that's what I love about Shinrin Yuko. That's what I love about tree bathing, forest
Hmm.
bathing, where you can go and you
Yeah.
can focus on, I don't know, just going to look at, tree bark or something. I don't know what you do, but I sometimes choose something to just go. And I think because it's like you, Maureen, you run your own business and you're consulting, you're doing your marketing, you're doing the podcast. But like me, you're doing all these things. And a lot of it's in the interface is on the computer. And then you might have your partner coming down and making a cup of tea and then trying to talk and then the phone's ringing and blah blah blah. And it's so sensory overload. And I think which was lovely actually reflecting on my connection with nature. So thank you for this opportunity, Maureen. But I think for me, my connection with nature and the thing that brings me so much joy is the quietness. It's being able to shut my, I'm going to say almost like I shut my senses off. I walk into the forest. I mean, particularly here where I'm living at the moment, because I'm near Ashridge Forest. It's absolutely beautiful in the West Hertfordshire. It's one of the oldest forests in London, in the UK. And there's beautiful old beech trees. But it's I shut my senses off and I walk into I put my wellies on and I take my camera sometimes and I just walk into the forest and I just let myself be and I smell and I hear and I can hear the birds and I'm just quiet and I smell the mushrooms and it's just it takes me away from all the electronic stuff and it takes me from all away from all the worry and all the constant blah 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 to just be quiet actually. And I didn't realize how much I actually relish peace. I Yeah, and I think that's what moments in nature really give me are moments in peace, a respite actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So many things come to my mind as you were sharing that. Um, One very interesting thing, and I find meaning in everything, is that I'm wearing earbuds. And a
Okay.
little while ago, just a few minutes ago, one of my right earbud just popped out of my ear and fell on the floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, scrambling to find it, and I can't reach it. It's actually went across the room. So as you're talking, I'm realizing, as you're talking about entering the forest and hearing and silence,
Yeah.
to me, it reminded me that, this is kind of the rational thinking, right? The right side of our body. I still have the left side. So I needed to listen to you with my heart, with my intuition. And I think that's such an important reminder for me
Mm.
doing this podcast and listening to the people that are graciously coming on is to hear what they're saying from the heart.
It's beautiful.
And that's how we are when we're taking those quiet walks in nature, is
Mm.
we're allowing our heart to open. Because just as you were describing all the chatter of our everyday lives with technology, our hearts kind of close up because it's just too much, right? It's too
Yeah.
much to feel all of that. But we're in our heads and it's spinning around and spinning around. And when we take these moments where we could allow that to just go and just approach life with an open heart,
Yeah.
and we can really create that balance that we're all hoping to do. And I love this. It's a quote from Richard Louv, but I'm not quoting it exactly. I'm paraphrasing it. But he was saying in one of his books, I think it was The Nature Principle, the more technology we have in our lives, which is great, right? Of course, we're using technology. We're not being hypocritical here. Technology is awesome. But the more we have it in our lives, the more we need nature
Mm. Mm.
to create that counterbalance.
Yeah, that's so true. Because technology, everything is so fast. We send an email, somebody sends something back. We can be connected constantly, 24/7. We take our, smartphones. If we're going into London or whatever, like if I'm on the train, I check my emails, I kind of go through things, and I use that sometimes that opportunity. Well, yeah, most of the time I use the opportunity if I'm on a train to catch, everything. So you're going from rushing from one thing to another, and I'm desperately trying to slow down this year. And that's one of the things. And I've actually just sent a newsletter out for the journal, which I hate doing because it takes me ages to do it, and it's all technical, and I have to keep dragging and dropping and cross-checking. And I'm not a detailed person. I mean, I sound like I am because I like language and stuff like that, but it's like I can be like it when I want to be, but it's just I think it slows me down. It's like boring. know. So it took me ages to do it. I was reflecting on the fact that I'm trying to do this year every day at least one thing that will bring me joy during the day. And it could be the smallest thing. It could be like making sure I make a cup of chai or a cup of tea and I sit quietly for 5 minutes, or I do some
Mm.
sketching, or I sew, or I take a walk, or I go for a swim, or I'm being conscious about it, not just trying to squash it in, but actually really being conscious about it. And like you said about being conscious, like we're constantly like, working in our heads, that we shut, and you're really important what you said there about shutting the feelings down, because it's so true, isn't it? We're just here all the time. We're just in our heads. And that's what's making us sick, isn't it? I mean, that's what our built environment's doing, is because we are pushed from pillar to post. We're surrounded in white boxes. We're so disconnected from living, breathing systems. This biophilia effect. We're so shut away from it that we forget that we need it. And so yeah, that reconnecting the feelings, being able to go somewhere where you feel safe enough to just, you know, let your mind go and just be and breathe. And it's so important because we come back and we're refreshed, aren't we? And we always think, why don't I do more of that? You know?
Well, it just makes me feel so hopeful when I listen to you, who is so immersed in the biophilic concept in your work. But
Mm.
even you have to remember, oh,
Yeah,
stop, get
yeah,
outside, have stillness, have, that silent, deep
yeah,
experience of of just what's outside our front doors.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I am if I have make a phone call now, I've tried to not do like online calls. I'm trying more just to, even if it's WhatsApp or something, but I'm doing a call so I can get up from the desk, away from the blinking screen, and and because I've got a view of you and I both love squirrels. I know you love squirrels because you do the squirrel rescue. I kind of imagine you. I have these visions of you in like putting like a Spider-Man outfit on and going and rescuing the squirrels. I kind of like squirrel rescuer, which is lovely. But I've got the squirrels outside here, and the other day there was a cat in the tree, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a marmalade cat in the tree. It was just sitting there with his arms folded. I think it was gonna, it was like with a knife fork. But that's what I love about, just being outside, just watching. So yeah, I make sure, even though I've got this huge, window, door, and outlook, and I can see the seasons change and everything, I'm now
Mm.
consciously, it's like my stage 5 of my biophilic intervention, self-intervention is to make sure I stand up and look out the blasted window deliberately. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And we, uh, no matter how much we know,
Mm,
uh, no matter how much we do, we still have to remind ourselves all the time. So
yeah.
it is really a vital part of our lives to do that. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. And you know, you talk about silence, and it brought me back to some of the stories you shared in the book. But I'm going to open that up to you. Would you be interested in sharing one of those stories or something new coming through?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of things, and I was remembering the stories of like being up in the mountains and
Mm.
witnessing a thunderstorm and all these things. But again, it was the quietness that was one of those things. But there was actually a moment where, as I said, I've run a media company, so I was doing photography with PhotoAid hat on. I was filming surgery, brain surgery and neurosurgery in Kenya. So I was like, right in the edge and sort of near the mountain. And I mean, it was an amazing experience and really
Whoa.
fantastic. So I was only there for a few days, but you can imagine what the intensity of that was like. And again, that's not white walls actually. They've got tiles, like they look like they come from the 70s on the wall. At least it's sort of clean. But so I'd done that. But the guy said, look, you've got before your flight, and you know me, Maureen, I'm like, I can cram that in. And he said, before your flight, which was at like 6 o'clock at night, and obviously I still had to drive like 2 hours to get to the airport before I got there. You can get a safari in. So I woke up in the morning, got myself on a safari, and I had this amazing experience, like watching lions, really close up. It was phenomenal. I mean, honestly, Maureen, it was one of those, just being taken through. I had a sort of private woman. It was so cheap as well. It was really just one of those amazing. There was rhinos and hippos and oh my goodness, oh giraffes ran together. There was like lots of groups, like pairs of giraffes just running, and I was, you kind of have that sort of, you have to pinch yourself to go, hang on a minute, 5 minutes ago, I was filming these life-changing, things for these poor people who, without this guy's training, coming out there and sort of going back to his own like country and sort of really making a difference. You've got this sort of, it's all about life. It's about living things. Again, biophilia, it's about, reaffirming the fact that we're all trying to do something to keep someone else alive or ourselves alive, and so we should connect that. But anyway, so I've done this amazing um safari, and I'm sort of piled myself back on in the car, and the windows open because I'm like, everybody's like, oh, air conditioning, and I'm like, I hate air conditioning. My windows are always down. That's my air conditioning. Windows are down, and I've got a thing about wind as well. So it's like it's just like being buffeted by wind, and I think that comes from when I was 15 and blah blah blah. But I put my arm out the window, and on the radio, the taxi driver has got like the local music on, and I just had this moment of, I mean, how old was I? I was nearly 50. I think I'm just about to turn 50, and I had my arm out the window, and it's really weird. I felt like I'd grown up. I felt like I'd become an adult and I can't, and it was something to do with the fact that I was doing something that really made me happy. And I was doing the thing that I was doing for me and not for anyone else. And I'm not saying that my parents made me do anything they didn't at all, but it was like I had to, I was like answering to somebody every step of my life. Someone said, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And it was like the first time going, doing the nature, doing the photography, and it was just, I felt liberated. I felt like it was the thing, and it was like, I suppose, a combination of the two things. But I suppose it was seeing, just seeing animals and nature out, and just thinking, I don't know, there's something about the African energy in Kenya, and I don't know what it is. I mean, you might know about like ley lines and all that sort of stuff, but
Mm.
there's such a connection, and I can't explain it. It's something quite special. Um, so yeah, I suppose the thing that I'm sharing is really, it's the energy of that earth that's there. It's like a calling. It's like, and I work in Uganda all the time. I keep going back to Uganda, and just people are lovely, but there's the energy in the earth there. But there's something about Kenya. Um, yeah, I mean, Karen Blixen, if you think about her, what she did and where she was.
Yeah.
And I've been to her house with a good friend of mine, Sarah Glover. So if she's listening to the podcast, hello, Sarah. But she runs a charity Born to be Beautiful, where she's like teaching women manicures and pedicures and, self efficiency, if you want, because they're living, in abject poverty and stuff. And but she's got a love of flying and love of nature and sort of Africa, and yeah, there's
Mm.
something about the spirit there that's just quite wonderful, actually. um
Wow. Well, I got tears in my eyes,
oh, mm,
because I could feel that moment in the cab.
yeah,
There's something almost, it's mystical, magical. It's like you stepped through a door, a portal
exactly.
to another unseen realm where you felt completely like embodied in your own soul.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely, that's absolutely it. And I don't know I don't know if there's something going on this year as well, but it's since my mum passed away a year ago. Was it a year ago? A year and a half ago.
Oh,
I got in
wow.
my brain. I've actually blotted it out. The whole thing everything was traumatic about the whole thing. It's the reason I'm doing the
Oh,
biophilic design thing, because I don't want anyone to go through trauma when at the end of their life, and and you should have a better experience when you're in healthcare and hospitals. That's my whole driver for doing the Journal of Biophilic Design, is to share the best practice. And obviously now I'm campaigning for it in hospitals and everything. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go on about what happened when she passed, but after she passed, and because of my relationship with my mum, it's very intense, and for different reasons, and good and bad. But I'm feeling that same feeling. I get glimpses of it more in where, like now, where I'm spreading my wings and I'm doing what I want to do when I want to do it in the way I want to do it. And with amazing people. The collaborations are just wonderful. There's so many wonderful spirits like yourself, Maureen, that have come into my life that even though we might not speak for one minute to the next, I know you're there. Um, and it's like, yeah, but this is what biophilia is. It's about this life and it's living connections and things. But yeah, I
yes.
think it's so important to liberate yourself in however that is. And nature gives us that liberation, that 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 liberation. Yeah, and I do mean that feeling of freedom, free spiritedness. Yeah, to be you, to be yourself.
Yeah, there's that theme of silence, stillness in your stories. There's like a thread of
Yeah,
that. And and freedom,
yeah.
really, through all the stories that I've heard you share. And I so resonate with all of that. And I'm just wondering if we're just because we're like-minded or because that is something we all crave, we all resonate with.
Mm. Yeah.
It's space. It's nature provides us this space so that other things can come through to us.
Yeah.
And we can come back to ourselves. I always kind of envision, when I'm doing a meditation, most of the time I'm up in my head during meditation going, okay, I'm doing this. Yay, I'm finally sitting down. And I think so well of myself, right? But then it's like, oh, and don't forget, you got to do this later. And right, we have all that mental chatter. But then there comes a moment where there's almost like I envision it as this like, so we're like this,
Mm.
connected, right? But then when we have that space, it's like things can come through that.
Yeah.
Messages can come through and it
Mm.
can help us align with
Yeah.
our soul's calling.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think of it like sort of stepping off a cliff. So it's like falling. So it's like you're on the cliff, you're right, and then you're falling. But that's me in mountains probably, I don't know. But
Yeah.
you're falling, but my sort of spirit animal is a swallow, is a bird, and also a wolf. So I don't quite know what's going on there. Or maybe I've got like a, maybe I should like design. Maybe that's what I should do. I should draw like a wolf swallow. Um, I don't know. That's probably wrong on so many levels, but yeah, one would eat the other. I don't know. Maybe the swallow would eat the. I don't know. Maybe I could change it around. Yeah, but for me, when I eventually get around to meditating, but I feel like I'm falling, and then I'm about to, and I fly, and I think that's probably why I like being on mountains, and that's why I like being abroad. Actually, I think that's why I like being in places that are so anathema to my normal life. That it makes my brain switch off and it makes me connect with where I am and be in the moment, which I don't get the opportunity to, or I haven't had the opportunity to, but I'm having that now. I mean, I actually can do that now because I'm not pressurized into doing other things and being controlled by, X or Y. Yeah. So yeah, that the liberation, again, it's the word I'm using, but the liberation, that freedom, being able to spread your wings, yeah, being able to just jump off that cliff and take and let the wind take your wings and lift you into wherever it is that you've got to go. Whether it's the top of a tree or just, on a branch or just nestle, just feel it, just feel that spirit, inside yourself, connect yourself, listen to yourself and trust yourself that you can fly. I remember
Yes.
when I was younger, when I was about 16, 15, whatever it was, with this sort of crazy time. But I remember, you sometimes you have to let the bird out of the cage to let it remember that it has wings. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it's something that I just came up with or whatever. But yeah, sometimes you have to let the bird out of the cage to remind it that it's got wings. And we have to do that to ourselves. We have to let ourselves out of our cage, out of our white boxes, out of the hospitals, out of the schools, out of the workplaces that we've got, and put ourselves into nature. And for me, bringing nature into the built environment helps us live better lives every day. So we need to bring nature to us so that we can feel that connection, that inherent connection that we need to have with nature every single day, wherever we are, whoever we are, however much money we've got, whatever job we've got, whatever walk of life, whatever color, creed, you know, sex, we can just be who we are, who we're meant to be, really. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a reminder that we don't have to go out into the forest for that. We just, you know, simply walking out our door to our car or to the train station and being aware of the sky and the sun and the shadow and light and breeze and all of these things are available to us, even if we don't have trees. We have access to nature in so many other ways. And I just have to say that stepping off a cliff is definitely not my go-to for feeling bliss. But leave that to you because you have this real strong connection with,
With birds.
very
Oh, yeah.
large mountains.
I do.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you were in Nepal. You
Oh
were
God.
in the Himalaya.
Yeah, it was just, yeah. So I was staying in a monastery there. I was in a shadowing a Rinpoche. I had amazing dreams. Oh my word, talk about that was liberating too. I dreamt about this sort of big egg, which apparently like in their thing is like this big white egg, which was floating around, and I was in it and out of it, and yeah, it was just so many things that was just
Wow.
loads of dreams. And the Rinpoche was amazing. He was interpreting every morning, I hadn't had so many vivid dreams, and the colors on there was amazing. But in between everything, because I was shadowing them for PhotoAid, but to tell their story so that they could raise money for their monastery and that. But I met one day, I came out, I'd had a cup of tea, I had like the tea they make in the morning, and I walked around to like there was a nunnery at the bottom of the monastery, so the nuns lived in a different place. But I walked along down past a little tiny cliff side, and you could see like the cuttings in the earth, in the rocks, and in the land, in sort of like the plain, if you want, below, where you could see like I think it was tea that were growing. And it was like underneath my feet was like dusty. It was in the sort of summer sort of season, and the sort of red dust under my on my feet, and just again quietness, but the red, all the prayer flags were just like draped everywhere, from the rocks to the nunnery to the buildings below to just to each other and to the trees, and like you think, how on earth did they get them up to these like crazy places? And yeah, just phenomenal. And because the colors, I mean, I just love the reds and obviously they're energy colors, aren't they? And
Yeah.
yeah, and that was just, yeah, that was just beautiful. That was just, yeah, just wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, there is something about travel and, experiencing new places
Mm.
that I do crave. And I know many people do, but they can't really afford to do it that often. So even things I have found, like taking a different route to work,
Yeah.
can really be eye-opening because you're not in this ingrained pattern of the same, you don't notice
Mm.
the roadside when you're traveling constantly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've walked down a block and I go, I've never noticed that house before.
Yeah.
But when you're driving, you're just mindlessly.
Mm.
But when you take a new route, that can open things up and present new opportunities. So I always recommend to people to kind of like break out of the habit patterns of your normal routine and try to change things up a little bit. It
Mm.
just it just opens the mind, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well as taking new routes, actually to, if you take public transport, say, get off the stops, like say three before you normally
Ah,
do, because then you will see difference. And I mean I love long distance walking as well, because you see how things change. And it's the same if you're traveling from a few blocks, from a few bus stops, you will see the neighborhoods change, you will see the people change, you will see, maybe the dogs, people walking the dogs. And if you do it regularly enough, you'll see similar things, and then you will see new things. Yeah.
that is so beautiful. So as we're wrapping up here, and I hate to have to wrap up, but do you have any last words you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think whoever you are, anyone who's listening to this, whoever you are and wherever you are, just take a moment right now to just look at something that's from nature. There could be a plant on your desk. I don't know if you're in near a window. What can you see? Can you see trees? Can you see a plant? What season is it? What does it remind you of? Is it cold? Does it feel cold? Does it feel hot? Just but do that every day. Try and set yourself a reminder. Put a post-it note by the kettle to remind yourself to just to commune with nature, just once a day. Just make sure you just do it once a day. And then it's like crisps, or it's like good chocolate. It's moreish. Once you've done it once, you're going to want to do it at least twice, three times a day. And it doesn't actually put weight on. It's good. It's better than crisps. So communion with nature
Absolutely.
is better.
Absolutely. I love it. It's something that you'll crave. You
Mm,
will crave to just
yeah.
have that But like you said, it's beneficial, and you could do it at any time during the day that you remember it. Any time.
Exactly. Exactly. And of course, I will say, do look at biophilic design and how you can bring that into your built environment. And if you're in a
Yes.
school, see how you can bring nature into the school. Into if you're a teacher, then to see, can you bring plants in? Can you take the kids outside? Can you have an outdoor class? If you're a nurse in the hospital, can you influence the curtains that are put around the wards? Can you influence the colorways? Can you put, a virtual window up? Can you put pictures of nature up? I think actually that's probably what I'm going to leave with actually is, if you don't have a view of nature, please get a print of nature and put it on your wall. Just have a view of nature that takes you somewhere else, and if particularly if you're in healthcare, or if you're in the workplace, or you're in a white box, just do this. Do this for yourself and for the people you work with and anyone you love. Just put a picture of nature, a beautiful view of nature, in the built environment, in the space, and it will just, your cortisol levels will come down, your focus better, you'll be more creative, you'll be a better version of you, and you won't kick the dog when you go home. So,
On that note, thank you so much, Ness, for coming on with us today.
thanks, Maureen.
And I really am excited to hear where you're going next.
Bless you.
As I said, you're always learning more and incorporating what you learn into your life and to your work. So thank you for that.
God bless you. Thanks, Maureen.
And for all of you who are listening, I would love to hear your thoughts, anything that comes up for you as we spoke today. And please subscribe, like, and share, and have a wonderful day out in nature.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of the Enchanted Earth podcast. Comment below, share, and most of all, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll hear when we publish another inspiring episode. You can visit us at luminous-spaces.com for more information on our online courses, retreats, and offerings. Thank you and have a magical day.